Hello again, gentle viewers, and welcome back to another episode of The Broken Wheel. So, the big news, the first 3 episodes of The Wheel of Time have dropped on Amazon Prime on Friday. I watched all 3 of them, and I loved them all. So much to talk about, so much to go over, so let's just dive right into it. The opening scene is we see Moiraine getting ready to head out, and a voiceover of her giving an exposition of how male Aes Sedai broke the world and was led by a man that would later be known as the Dragon. This is technically true, though there are some broader facts that are kind of left out. Moiraine also states that they don't know whether the dragon will be reborn as a woman or a man. It's different from the books, but I see where they're going with this to add a little bit more mystique as to who the Dragon Reborn actually is. So this figurine that Moiraine is packing is actually a Sangreal, which is an item that Aes Sedai can use to channel more of the One Power than they normally would. Here we see some of the Red Aja chasing down a man, presumably in channel, and they corner him, and he begs them to let his companion go, and their leader, I presume this is Ileada, asks him,
"Who are you talking about?"
And he realizes that the other person's a hallucination. She states that
the madness already has him,
and kind of goes on about how men channel is an affront to the true source. So Lana and Moiraine discuss where they're going to go next. She tells him the 2 rivers because there are 4 taverns there. I'll go into taverns in more detail in a future video, but give you an idea, a tavern is someone for whom the Wheel of Time and the pattern revolves around. So simply put, these are individuals that have a great destiny ahead of them. So here we are now in the 2 rivers. We see Egwene is having her hair braided for the first time. This is a sign of a young girl reaching womanhood in the 2 rivers, as well as her being initiated into the women's circle. Now, as part of this rite of passage, Nynaeve pushes her into the river, presumably so that she learns to trust the river to glide down it to safety. This is, in my opinion, a metaphor for a woman embracing Saidar. For the women's circle in this series are said to be women that can listen to the wind and foretell the weather. So here we finally see Emond's Field, the home of the main cast of characters. Everybody's getting ready for the Festival of Beltane. This, in the book, is actually a celebration of coming spring. In this series, they seem to have morphed it into somewhat similar to the Day of the Dead, where people light lanterns to guide the departed back to the world of the living. Part of the belief system of the people in the Westland is that you live your life according to the light, be good and kind and all that good stuff, so that when you die, your soul will be resurrected into the next life. Otherwise, if you're just, a rotten person, or you've thrown your lot in with the Dark One, you're condemned to oblivion. So here we see the 3 young men, Perrin, Rand, and Mat, all together as friends, with Mat kind of leading things, rolling dice and gambling and not having a particularly good day and keeps losing money. He does make a mention that Perrin is married, which is not in the books, but I think I see where they're going with this. Mat is kind of being portrayed as this somewhat degenerate gambler and common thief, as he loses what money he has and then goes to charm his way to this young lady in an attempt to steal her valuables. So Egwene comes in and everybody's very happy to see her, that she's passed her rite of passage, especially her father. She quickly gets swept away by the women's circle, telling everybody she's going to drink with them for a while to celebrate, while Rand is very happy to see her, he's a bit taken aback that she's getting swooped away by the other women, feeling that they are taking her away from him. And this will play out quite a bit, how Egwene is somewhat outgrowing him and leaving him behind. So I love this entrance from Lan, kind of like a badass gunslinger from an old Western movie, because that is Lan. He is the last person you ever want to mess with. And of course, he's coming in first, surveying everything, making sure everything is safe for Moraine to enter. And when she does, Egwene's mother immediately recognizes her great serpent ring, realizing she is an Aes Sedai.
Of course, Moraine Sedai.
Putting everybody else on edge, Nynaeve being very protective. So here we meet Perrin's wife, who apparently also works in the blacksmith, and there seems to be some reluctance from her to his affections, with him stating that he loves her and her not saying it back. Looks like they're fleshing out Matt's character here, with Matt's mother looking to be somewhat of a alcoholic, and her being very upset that her husband, Matt's father, is flirting with other women in front of everyone. So Matt tries to discreetly take her home so she doesn't embarrass herself any longer. And when they get home, you see Matt's two sisters. I'm glad they got put in because they were only mentioned in the book, so we get to see more of his relationship with the two of them, and we see that he is a dutiful older brother in spite of his faults. So laying his mother down, she says to him,
You're going to be just like your dad. Damn prick like him.
Back at the end, we see Egwene and Rand's father talking about what's going on in the rest of the world, the rumors of war in the south, in Gildan, and Egwene's mother goes to the knee-jerk Two Rivers response in that, what happens in the rest of the world is no concern of ours, so why should we care? And Tam's a little more interested in what's going on in the world, but ultimately that's where it's left. He does remark,
Aes Sedai don't fight wars. They pull the strings of the world from the White Tower.
So eventually the adults decide to leave the young ones alone to finish cleaning up, which of course leads to, well, you get the idea. This scene with Lan and Moraine is a bit surprising because Moraine is rather modest and wouldn't really be naked even in front of Lan. This is more just showing the intimacy between the two of them. Even though they're not romantically involved, they're still discomfortable with each other, having traveled together for 20 years. We also kind of see their shorthand communication. Because they can feel what each other are emotionally feeling, they're able to make assumptions correctly so about what the other is thinking. And Lan kind of hints
it could be warmer.
Moraine relents and uses the power to heat the bath. In this scene, Rand is sensing that something's wrong with Egwene, and Egwene tells Rand that Nynaeve wants Egwene to be her apprentice and be a wisdom, which would mean she would never get married or have children. Again, Rand feels her pulling away from her. And out of the storm and darkness, we see the Myrddraal rolling into town. So here is Padan Fain rolling into town, and I love the actor they've got to play him. It's going to be even better when we see more of it, but how he seems all, cheery and friendly as he comes into town, and everybody's excited to see him, for not many peddlers come to the Two Rivers. And then we see Matt coming to him, and in this interaction, we realize that Padan Fain is the fence for Matt's stolen items, and has been doing so for probably years. And Padan Fain cheats him and gives him just half a mark and 3 lanterns To which Matt replies,
"You're right, bastard, Paddington."
So the sparks start flying when Moraine and Nynaeve have a one-on-one, which is not surprising, for the two of them are very strong-willed individuals, with Nynaeve having her short temper and making it very clear she has very little taste for Aes Sedai. Tells about the wisdom that raised her, how she walked all the way to Tar Valon when she was 13 years old, taking her months to do so, and as soon as she arrived...
And when she got there, your sisters took one look at her ragged clothes, her peasant accent, and they turned her away.
This would not have happened if the woman had any real strength with the One Power, for the Aes Sedai's numbers have been dwindling for quite some time, so they don't tend to turn away anybody if they can help it. Moraine actually pays her a compliment, telling her that she feels she is strong and deserving of her position, but she's more fishing for Nynaeve's age. Nynaeve is 25, 26, which is too old to have been born at the right time as the Dragon Reborn. So I really like this interaction here, as we see really that these three young men really are friends. Perrin and Matt can tell that Rand is hurting, for Egwene has just told him that she is going to be Nynaeve's apprentice, so there's no hope of them ever getting married. Perrin and Rand have pooled together some money for Matt's family to get lanterns for the Beltane festival, which he's reluctant to take, but they insist on it. You do see that they do care for him, even though he's irresponsible with money. So Nynaeve and Egwene are listening to the wind, and they sense that something is off. Something that neither of them has ever heard before. And this is further confirmed when we see Lan discovering this arrangement of dead sheep in the form of the Black Fang, or sometimes called the Dragon Fang, which is a common sign of ill fortune. Again, we see the Two Rivers folk observing this holiday, with them placing these lanterns into the river, which are meant to guide the souls of the departed back to their homes, which is similar to some Asian cultures that do this. So this is actually very reminiscent of Robert Jordan's style. He liked to mash certain cultural traditions and customs together to create a whole new one. And we see Nynaeve out by herself, in her way, not wanting to be seen crying by anybody else. So Lan confirms what Moraine is suspecting, that a Myrddraal is in the area, as well as having a few dozen Trollocs with it as well. So they know they need to leave soon and act immediately. So I really like this dance that they came up with for the Two Rivers folk, how there's this inner circle of women, the outer circle of men, and how they're moving around but still with their partners, symbolizing a wheel turning, which is just great the way they choreographed it, and how everybody seems to be just having a great time and enjoying the festival, even Patton Fane's cracking a smile, until it tragically stops. I'm so loving the design they have with the Trollocs. They got the size of them, the bestial look about them, and the rendering and CGI they've done, along with the practicals, was just amazing. This really feels like, you've just been attacked by monsters. And sometimes even some of them go down on all fours to move quickly, showing their more bestial nature, and it's just fantastic. So as people are taking cover inside of the buildings, Matt realizes that his sisters are not present, and so goes running out to go save them. Nynaeve, as ever protective as she is, tries to protect Egwene, and when the Trolloc makes its roar at him, her response is just perfect. And meanwhile, at the Althor Manor, Trollocs bust into their farm, and Tam wants Rand to run, but of course he's not going to leave his father behind, and is surprised when Tam has a sword where we see it has the heroine mark on the blade, and he's actually very good with the sword. Though the Trolloc does end up getting the upper hand, and Rand ends up saving his father by killing the Trolloc, and then realizing that Tam's wound is got this black substance in it from the Trolloc's weapon, and realizes he's got to get him back into town to treat the wound. And in the middle of all this chaos, we see Nynaeve get snatched by her hair by one of the Trollocs and taken away. And here is, of course, the best part of the episode. We see Lan and mostly Moiraine just kicking ass. Moiraine using the power of wind to cut Trollocs down or crush them, or chucking fireballs, or really letting loose by throwing lightning bolts. And Lan, of course, just cutting Trollocs left and right. What I really love is how the two of them are in sync. You know, she knows where he's at, he knows where she's at. They're covering each other's backs and fighting as one. So a couple of Trollocs bust into the smithy where Perrin and his wife are taking cover along with some other people, and Perrin gets the upper hand on one of the Trollocs and just loses it and just ends up chopping it to pieces, and then reacts without thinking. And yeah, this was not in the book, but I like where they're going with this, because of all the characters, Perrin has the biggest heart, and I love the way the actor has portrayed this, as you see his pain of what he's done. So Matt does find his sisters and, of course, leads them away to safety. Now Moiraine gets injured here and sees more Trolloc reinforcements coming, so she just gathers all the strength that's left, and she just uses the town itself to fight off the remaining Trollocs. And much like the inn behind her, that causes her to collapse from exhaustion. And the morning comes, and Rand sees the town has been just ransacked and burnt. We see him now carrying Tam's sword, along with Tam slumped over the horse. Matt brings his sisters back from where they were hiding. There seems to be a moment where Matt's father even seems to be a little proud of him. And this is heartbreaking, with Perrin bringing his wife's body out into the town square, and Matt running over to him, knowing that he's inconsolable. He's still his friend, and so has to do something. So Rand accuses Moiraine of bringing this misfortune down on the Two Rivers, and she tells them that the Dark One's forces are here for one of the four of them, as one of them is the Dragon Reborn, to which Matt replies,
You fully lost your mind.
Moiraine makes mention of an Aes Sedai that prophesized the dragon being reborn. This is an Aes Sedai named Gitana Moroso. She did have incredible powers of foretelling, though her eyes were not white, just her hair was very white, for she was, at the time, the oldest living Aes Sedai at 308 years old. Even by Aes Sedai standards, that's very old. When she foresaw the dragon's birth, it proved too much for her to handle, and the shock of it caused her death. It's also worth noting that Moiraine was actually present when that happened, just by chance, and this set off a chain of events that would lead Moiraine to search for the Dragon Reborn, which she has been doing for the past 20 years, which shows you the commitment she has to finding this person. And then they see that more Trollocs are coming. Land guesses about 300, which is more than they could ever hope to fight off. So Moraine tells them that they all have to leave immediately so as to save the town from destruction. So they don't really want to leave their home, but they realize they don't have any other choice. And so they have some partings with their families as they ride away from the two rivers. So this somewhat epithet of the episode we hear Moraine say is actually the opening lines from the first chapter of pretty much all of the books, though the last line is slightly different. But it does make the point that this is the beginning of something big. So I hope you've enjoyed this breakdown of the first episode. If you've seen it already, you've enjoyed it as much as I have. So I'll get to the other 2 episodes as soon as I can. But until next time, may the light be with you.